Hello and welcome to the Vantage Performance Podcast. I'm Phil Dobby, and today, what is the definition of the turnaround industry? There's been lots of attempts to put it into words, but times are changing, and perhaps now it's time to think again about what turnaround is all about. That's today on the Vantage Performance Podcast. Well, if you Google turnaround, it comes out with this definition, which is an abrupt or unexpected change, especially one that results in a more favourable situation. It gives the example, it was a remarkable turnaround in his fortunes. But that's not quite right for the turnaround industry, which isn't always abrupt and isn't unexpected. So what is the definition? Well, Michael Fingland is with me, as usual, CEO and Executive Director of Vantage Performance, who wants to achieve out of this podcast, and hopefully from subsequent discussions as well, something that hasn't been achieved for as long as the turnaround industry has been around. And that is to come out with an adequate definition of exactly what the turnaround industry is.
Yeah, that's right, Phil. And around the world, and Australia's no different, the turnaround industry has always grown out of the insolvency industry, which is normal. And there comes a point in time, once an industry has been going, 10, 15 years, that it starts to create its own space and the market understands what it is and what it's not. And turnaround, as we've said for many, many years, is not insolvency. The job of a turnaround practitioner is to ensure that that never becomes a reality. So, and one of the big prerequisites for an industry to really take off, and one of our biggest bugbears is that there was a very inconsistent definition in Australia about what is turnaround. Around the world, even in certain organisations, there's multiple different definitions, and it's very hard to take a movement forward if there's not one clear message about what this movement is all about. And that's what we want to talk about today.
So those definitions that do exist are still tied up very much around trying to avoid insolvency, are they?
Yeah, they are. And then, we can rattle off half a dozen of the major ones that are used. And if you, give us some
of the bad ones.
Well, I won't name names, but often they talk about, moving you from insolvency to solvency. Now, as you know, we've talked a lot and studied a lot and researched a lot about how to encourage directors to seek help earlier, that whole early intervention piece. And one of the key parts to that is using language that doesn't scare them. It doesn't feed the fear.
Yeah.
So
that also, that sounds scary, but it also sounds like the job's not fully done at the end of it. It's like, well, we've got you from insolvency to a point where you're just about solvent, but you could all fall over again in a year's time.
Exactly. And so for a long time, and Australia's we're no different here. We've followed a typical pattern of industries, of turnaround industries around the world. And, it's now at a point where it's starting to mature and we need to create that separation. And so we've got to, as an industry, AICD, the TMA, ARETA, Chartered, CPA, we've all got to, agree upon a central definition that encourages directors to seek help. It doesn't feed the fear, and is an accurate reflection of what a genuine turnaround is. A turnaround is not always just turning a loss-making business or a business in crisis back to profit. It could be a business that is making a mediocre profit, but is leaving a lot of profit on the table because they're not sweating the business properly. So rather than making $1 million a year, they could be making 10. So that's a turnaround.
Would those companies be even aware that a turnaround industry existed?
Probably not. And that sort of brings me to a model which a lot of our listeners will have heard of before, which is the law of diffusion of innovation, which is very, very quickly, you have your early, your innovators, which are the 2.5% of the population. Then you have your early adopters, which is 13.5%, the early majority, the late majority, and then the laggards. So, turnaround as an industry is in that sort of crossover between innovators and early adopters. And it's not until you get to about 17%, which is basically at the end of that early adopters phase, until the industry sort of reaches that tipping point and then gets mass take-up of awareness, of understanding, of use. So we're at that point now. We're sort of halfway between the innovators, those firms, those individuals who jumped into this 10 years ago, like we did, and as I said, I think we're at the backstage of that early adopters phase. So we're at that really important crossover phase, which is it's called crossing the chasm, and getting a really clear, positive definition about turnaround is key to helping the industry really jump that gap and then getting mass take-up.
And that's that it can be for everybody, unless you are the most efficient company in the world, everyone can benefit from it, which is a long, long way from saying, yes, we're going to take you from insolvency to solvency. Hence the need for this definition.
Yeah, and that's right. And it's not just about solving a crisis. For a turnaround to be truly successful, it needs to be sustainable. And that means the company's still trading. It's still, if it was going from loss to profit, it's still trading, 1, 2, 3 years, into the future once you've finished your job. So that's the mark of a genuine turnaround, not just a temporary liquidity fix.
And I guess is it financial? Is it management? Is it strategic? It's all of those things, of course. You've got to somehow incorporate all of that into it.
You do. It's all of those factors. I mean, the financial markers are the easiest to see and measure. And that's why, Advantage, a definition of success is, as I said before, the business has to be trading, several years into the future. So that's when the turnaround is embedded, it's sustainable, it's repeatable, and you've dealt with those issues of the past and made those fundamental big changes in strategy that you needed to do to right the ship.
Right. And I think I remember you saying, if it wasn't you, it was someone else, very wise, which is why I assume it was you, saying that, if you're looking at the definition for something, you've got to look at the outcome. Forget about the journey. People just care about the outcome.
They do. We did touch on this in a recent podcast. So it's all about the outcome. And that's why, when you're looking at what does a sustainable turnaround look like, that's the outcome. And the outcome's not just, there's obviously a lot of art and science in turnaround to ensure business gets through whatever financial or operational crisis it's going through. But the outcome is what directors are looking for, what financiers are looking for, what the government's looking for. I mean, the number of companies that collapse every year, 10, 12,000 a year, it's a huge, huge drain on government coffers. We've done our own study, and we've mentioned it before a few times, that the only a 30% improvement in the rate of business collapse would save the government $12 to $13 billion a year. That's every year. So this is such a huge opportunity if we can get it right, and we can change government policies, we can change industry policies, we can do things like this to get a really clear consensus definition out there that doesn't scare directors, doesn't feed the fear, encourages them to seek help. It ties into the safe harbour regime, which we've talked about, which has been live now for 6 to 8 months or so. This is all around getting a really clear consensus around how to help businesses, how to identify them, how to get access to them, to assist them going through some of the key challenges that they're facing.
So can I have a go then? So I'm wondering whether you'll need to change the wording on this, but it is about the turnaround industry is all about making sure that companies can operate more efficiently and stay out of trouble.
Yep, that certainly is heading in the right direction, Phil. Not bad for your first go.
Well, that's
not
good.
Bad.
I've only had 6 or 7 minutes to work on this, so that's not
certainly
bad.
Covering off the key theme, and for us, I mean, as a firm, we've debated this definition, and we've looked at all the major industry bodies around the world. We've looked at the major restructuring and turnaround firms. Our own internal debate about what we think is the right definition. We've looked at the Oxford Dictionary, the Investor Media. There's a whole bunch of, and that's the huge frustration. There's so many different definitions out there, and no one's taking a lead on this. So we thought, well, little old us, why don't we start the conversation and put the challenge out there? Can anyone come up with a better definition than the one we've come up with? And that is that, and the key marker here, as I said before, the definition has to inspire directors to seek help, which is what this is all about, not scare the pants off them, which is what a lot of the definitions do.
So what's the best one you've got so far? How for all your internal discussions, what have you come up with?
So our firm-wide consensus definition is that turnaround is the sustainable recovery of a business that has been underperforming. So you got the key message there of it's a sustainable recovery. Mm-hmm. i.e. it's not a quick fix. It's not just 6 months. And it's just been underperforming. It doesn't mean it's been loss-making. It could well have been loss-making, but every director of a business that's not doing well will admit that their business has been underperforming.
Well, obviously yours is better than mine. I have to say that because you're the client in this relationship. But the businesses will look at that and go, "Well, my business isn't underperforming." You'll have the people who are going, "Well, in that case, it's not for me."
And there will always be directors who think that they can solve their challenge themselves, and sometimes they can. But, it's not scary to admit that your business has been underperforming. Every CEO, if they're really objective, will have times in their career where their business has not been performing. So the two key things there are it's been underperforming and it's a sustainable recovery. And it doesn't mean that you're on death's door. Some turnarounds you are, and we've done plenty of those. But it's all about a sustainable recovery of a business that's been underperforming in our view.
So everybody in the industry is going to benefit from a clear definition, because as you say, it's a burgeoning industry. There's so much more to gain, and there's so many more prospective clients out there. So how do we take this conversation forward then? What do you want people to do to follow on from this?
Yeah, I think challenge us, come up with a better definition, and if someone comes up with a better definition, fantastic. We'll run with that. This is about, and we're going to be talking to all the industry bodies and really hammering home the concept that we need to come up with one clear definition that encourages directors to seek help earlier. That's what the whole industry is all about. That's what every financier, every government department, every banker, lawyer, accountant wants, is their client to seek help and not just to try and muddle through and hope that they get it right. So we've got to come up with a definition that talks to that end. And as I said, let's put the challenge out there. If someone can come up with a better definition, fantastic.
Turnaround is the sustainable recovery of a business that has been underperforming. Can you do better than that? Did you, by the way, you got your team working on this. Did you take them out into the woods? I know you like to go out into the woods and brainstorm.
We may have had an external brainstorming session
in the woods. All right, okay.
It could have been at a pub.
Maybe. Yeah.
We switch between the two of them.
Okay, I'll be joining you for every other one in that case. So can you do better than? Guess which one? Can you do better than that? Get in touch with Michael and the team if you think you have a better definition. But yeah, very important that we get it right, given there's so much potential in the industry. Great to talk as always, Michael.
Cheers, Phil.
And that was a bit of fun, wasn't it? And a chance for us to get some listener feedback as well. So do get in touch and let us know what you think. And that is the Vantage Performance Podcast with Michael Fingland from Vantage Performance. And I'm Phil Dobbie. We'll catch you again very soon. Thanks for listening.